respond to a question for candidate Jacobson. This questioner says they're concerned about the airport. Los Angeles is a large city with a lot of power. What have you been involved with in order to keep the airport at bay?
Where do I start? We have been working very closely on many items over there. Every time the FAA does something, when the runway was closed, they reopened it with a multitude of different procedures that cause more noise to the airport. More noise to our residents. We've been working hard on that. We've corrected. The FAA has changed some waypoints to make it better. We're working on making sure that the louder air freighters are going to be going to the inboard runway. That'll make it. It's a lot of little things that have to be done, and the relationships that we've built up with the airport and the FAA have allowed us to be able to ask for these things and work with them to the betterment of the community.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or rebuttals on that question? Candidate Bush.
Thank you. I think with the installation of the new camera system that Bill and Carl worked on, we need to utilize that to its greatest effect. In the past, we've sent letters to pilots, chief pilots, saying please don't early turn over our community. But now we can document exactly who's doing it, how often they're doing it. I think we need to let the companies know, and if they don't respond appropriately, we document it to the nth degree, and then we go public to the media and get their attention. And that, I believe, will have a great effect.
Thank you. Any other comments, rebuttals? Candidate DeGroni?
Another point that is not very familiar to the public is the north runway. There has been 5 independent studies indicating some type of expansion from 200 to 340 feet. Our neighbors to the north of us have adamantly fought that, and we have to be alert that if they propose and get away with what they would rather, is going to push more traffic to the southern runway, which would affect the quality of our life. And that is something that we need to be alert on, and it's something I plan on fighting.
Any other rebuttals? Yes, candidate Burns.
I'm a Hillcrest Street resident, so I'm directly impacted by the airport every day. We have to hold our conversations just to hold conversations. One of the issues is the northern runway. I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The southern runway would move towards El Segundo. I think LAX has an obligation to move that northern runway. And I think El Segundo, the council, when I'm elected, we're going to push the city to do the right thing. I believe that runway incursions and safety is a major issue. There's already been one collision in 1991, and I don't think we need any more evidence that the runway system is a danger, and we need to do something about it, and we need to push back hard whenever we have the possibility.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Topar.
Yes, I hate to jump on the bandwagon to say that I agree with this, but I do agree with this highly. I noticed in the last 2 years or so that I have had many aborted landings where we've come in and had to take off again because there's an airplane right in front of us. And it seems to be mostly on the north runway. And it seems that to me that this really does, it's a safety issue. It's not a matter of expansion. It will definitely make a difference on our side of the town. They seem to think that we can just carry the brunt of the traffic on our side. Done.
Thank you.
I'm watching the cards.
Okay, any other comments or rebuttals? All right, that wraps up this round of questions for our council candidates. So we do have a question for our city clerk candidate, Candidate Hart. I'm going to assume the premise of this question is correct. If not, maybe you can correct it. But it says our current city clerk says that candidates are restricted from using more than $500 of their own money in a campaign. Is this an accurate interpretation?
It is inaccurate. You cannot. It is my statement that you researched that you can restrict contributions from other people, but you can't restrict a candidate to contribute to its own campaign. I had sort of agreed with the city attorney until it was resolved that wouldn't talk about this, but if it's brought up, I'll talk about it. You're talking about Buckley versus Vallejo, and you're talking about Brown versus Hartledge, such. If you want to talk about Brown versus Hartledge, how much time have I got?
Not much.
The candidate, no less than any other person, has a First Amendment right to engage in the discussion of public issues, as vigorously and tirelessly to advocate his own election and the election of other candidates. Indeed.
That's your time.
That's it? Anyway, that's the Supreme Court talking.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we're halfway through with our questions. We'll start again with candidate Burns. Your home is here. I assume that applies to all of you. Is disaster preparedness an issue? And are we prepared for a disaster?
Well, let's see if I may know a little bit about something about this. I think overall El Segundo does a pretty good job. And I have come to the council, and I think it's important to look at the issues that I bring, the concerns that I bring. We're all neighbors. We all are in the same fight together. And my passion is this job. I've been doing it for 25 years in disaster readiness. But I think El Segundo has the capability to bring it up to a way higher notch with the resources and support the community has. So that's why I've come forward to push the council on these issues. I think for as far as handling everyday emergencies, the city does an excellent job. But for disasters, we need to step it up, and we need to I think, lessen a little bit of the rhetoric to the community. We need to support our community volunteers. We need to improve the disaster council and get those stakeholders involved so we can get the plans that need to be done. And we need to look at national standards. National standards set the tone, and El Segundo is not currently meeting the national standards under an FPA 1600. And with those, I think that we'll be able to do an excellent job in the future. But I think we have to lead by example. And one of the things that I'm going to bring to the table as a council member is that leadership to help improve us to get through the next century. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or rebuttals? All right, we'll move on to a question for candidate member Bush. Why did the athletic fields cost so much, and how do we know who is using them?
The athletic fields ended up costing the city about a little over $5 million. But as I mentioned in my opening speech, we were able to sell naming rights for $1.5 million, basically reducing that overall cost to build it to $3.5 million. And that facility at $3.5 million is a great deal. And if you look at how many people it benefits, especially in fall, I mean, you're talking over 900 kids in AYSO. You have club soccer programs. Now you have lacrosse programs using that facility. The facility also has a standard protocol that all our park facilities use in order to, for our residents to ask to use that facility. If you are an organization with 75% residency or higher, you're first. 50% higher, you're next. If you're a business in town, you're next. And if you're an outside organization, you're going to have to pay to rent that facility. So I think it's a huge benefit to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, candidate Topar.
Yes, being on the Parks and Rec Commission, we were instrumental in that facility, and I think that it only costs us it costs $6,000 to run it a year, which is not very much at all when you consider that you can get that back in fees pretty easily from the different groups that are renting it. And that's a huge facility, and $6,000 is, for what it offers to our community, it's well worth it. And I just think that most of the people are enjoying it, and I like the fact that it's being kept open for people to use.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals or comments? Okay, we'll move on to the next question.